What's this? We're going back to Big Finish's Dark Gallifrey? We're gonna have to redecorate. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and for the end of 2025 we have one more foray into Big Finish's Dark Gallifrey range. Now for those of you who don't know, Dark Gallifrey is a subset of stories where we have these trilogy of episodes featuring rogue or evil Time Lords, with this ongoing mystery revolving around what is Dark Gallifrey, how do you get to it, and all of these other things that we still are no closer to figuring out. And with the exception of the opening story, Morbius, these have all revolved around various incarnations of the Master. Like, I'm happy that we get more War Master or Missy or Eric Roberts Master stories, but like, come on, surely you can be a little bit more original for Dark Gallifrey, right? But for me, this has been a pretty unpredictable range. Like, I really enjoyed the opening installment of Morbius, which was kind of like this Dracula story, which turned the Frankenstein origin of Morbius on its head. Then that was followed with the War Master, which had this really strange runaround with the Unbound Doctor, Bernie Summerfield and Captain John Hart, and also the War Doctor, but they barely interacted. And then after that, writer Rashana Patel knocked it out of the park with Dark Gallifrey Missy, this brilliant three-part story which is one of my favourites of 2025. So honestly, it could go in any direction for Dark Gallifrey Master! Exclamation point. Now, Master! Exclamation point is the sub-series which revolves around Eric Roberts' incarnation of the Master, making his debut in the 1996 TV movie. However, for Dark Gallifrey Master, the Master is not the main character. No, we're following Gallifreyan Academy student Gamara, played by Claire Huckle. The story takes place several years after a Gallifreyan Academy field trip where Gamara was seemingly the only survivor, and she's being interrogated by another Time Lord called the Mind Shield, played by Lizzie Hopley, who also wrote all 3 installments of this. And it's through the framing device of this multi-step interrogation where we learn what happened. The Master, played here by Eric Roberts, is in disguise as another Time Lord called the Vector, and he's selected a group of promising students to go into his TARDIS and go on a field trip. You've got Gamara, you've got Olzel, Borin, Sulinda, Tabreen and Torlis, and honestly a lot of them are basically just walking talking red shirts. But before we can get to all of that, the Master's TARDIS supposedly crash lands on this other world, which bears a striking similarity to Gallifrey, but it's definitely not Gallifrey, and the students have to find a way to survive the uncompromising landscape. However, the Master was seemingly killed in the crash and is being projected as a hologram via the Matrix, and he's acting as a supportive mentor figure to try and educate these kids on how to best survive this predicament, whilst also plotting to turn these kids against each other for his own Machiavellian purposes and his own private experiment.
You're all adopting a threatening stance, apart from Sulindra, who is clearly afraid, and Tabreen, who's waiting to join the winning side.
Sides. See? He's been trying to divide us since the moment we all met.
Torlis, he died in the crash. You're arguing with a programmed hologram.
Well, if he died, where's the body?
TARDIS within a TARDIS, chameleon circuit reinforced to survive the crash and set to remote retrieval.
The Utrastone was another TARDIS.
In a way, a pre-programmed life support pod, a Time Lord's body is priceless, especially mine.
Pre-programmed? The crash was deliberate?
Hard thinking to bring, but perhaps not beyond the High Council.
We're all Time Lords, all priceless.
Stop whining. You have no idea who you all are, do you? You are handpicked for this experiment.
Experiment?
What's that supposed to mean?
You are an experiment. 6 highly successful Time Lords with glittering futures. And this, right here, is how you get made.
You can tell it's Dark Gallifrey time because Winnie has turned up and stopped trying to bring the shelves down. There's some really cool ideas in Dark Gallifrey Master! Exclamation point. For example, I really like the framing of the Master as this potential cult leader slash slasher villain, and I think the framing device and whether or not Gamara is a reliable narrator for the story where she's being interrogated by the Mind Probe. No, not the Mind Probe, sorry, the Mind Shield. No, not the Mind Probe. It's a really great idea, and when you have the Master as this sort of cult leader and listening from Gamara's perspective, it kind of shows how good a job the Master did at isolating Gamara from her friends, because we see these scenes of the Master and Gamara talking to each other, and the Master is being really complimentary and really encouraging of her, and then it turns out that he's doing this with everybody and Gamara just didn't know, and that way of isolating Gamara from her peers was a really effective narrative strategy. And fellow student Olzo, played by Francesca Gilbert, she is injured in the crash, and the way that the Master sort of manipulates the situations around her is kind of interesting for the first two parts, and then for part 3 I thought the mystery element kind of fell off a cliff. There's this villainous fairy tale Time Lord element to the story called Mother Quiver, who is supposedly stalking the students, and while it's quite an interesting idea, there is a twist around Mother Quiver in part 3, and it genuinely took me a couple of minutes to realise that it was meant to be a twist, because I was just thinking, oh, that was obvious. Why is this being framed as a twist? I also think that part 3 of the story is where it hits a narrative wall, because there's a limit to how much this incarnation of the Master can know about Dark Gallifrey and can know about basically what its deal is. Because, well, a future incarnation, the War Master specifically, is trying to find it in his story and learn about it, so Eric Roberts' Master can't be ahead of him in that regard, so where is the story going? Where is it building to? And it's seemingly building to a confrontation between Eric Roberts' Master and Paul McGann's 8th Doctor, and while it is cool to see, it's only a couple of minutes long, it happens, and then the story just ends. Like, Dark Gallifrey Master doesn't have an ending, and I'm really perplexed as to what happened. Like, was there meant to be a part 4? Like, it doesn't seem to actually build to anything. And even the novelty of reuniting Eric Roberts and Paul McGann is cool, but they already did it in Master. They did it in Planet Doom, and it was done significantly better there. Like, you can only get away with this type of ending if you haven't paired these two actors up before in the Doctor Who universe since 1996, but they did it last year. I'd love to see a full-blown reunion story with these two, but in this one, Paul McGann basically makes an extended cameo. If you want an 8th Doctor adventure, you're not gonna get it here. He basically turns up, explains the plot, fights the Master for a minute, leaves, credits. It's so strange, which for me was a shame, because Dark Gallifrey Master started off with some really great potential. You know, it's part Lord of the Flies, part Stephen King's It, and the Master is the Jonestown cult leader. And I think Eric Roberts' Master really revels with this material. This incarnation of the Master is the smooth-talking, charismatic Master. Not saying that other Masters couldn't be charismatic, but there's something about the American accent, there's something about the poise this Master gives himself. This guy is hot shit, and he knows it. Kind of like how the War Master knows that he's got an older but more friendly body. Like, you look at Derek Jacobi and that's just an adorable old man, and the Master knows that that's the body he's got and how he's able to upend people's expectations because of that. So subverting the Master as this seemingly really supportive and friendly and charismatic mentor figure to these Time Lord students, that's a really cool idea. But then forcing the Master in this story to be a hologram projected by the Matrix, I sort of think it disempowers his agency. And while I think having Gamara be the main point of view character for the story is narratively effective, and it really works for her character, the rest of her Time Lord friends are really just not characterized. I barely even remember anything about them, which in this case is a big downside, because when we get into specifics as to why the Master chose these students in particular towards the end of the story, I don't know anything about them, and I don't know who they are as people, so it's very difficult to sort of separate them as individual characters and be invested in them and root for them to survive this encounter with the Master. It would be like in Stephen King's It if the Losers Club was Beverly and the rest. No, It is an ensemble cast, and maybe that could have been the better approach for Dark Gallifrey, at least when it comes to the main thrust of the narrative for Dark Gallifrey Master, as in the set pieces and the scenes that take place in the Gallifreyan forest. But overall though, Dark Gallifrey Master started strong, and Eric Roberts is great, but I really think it lost its luster as it went on, and it just petered out with a really baffling final few minutes. And it's kind of amazing that we've had 4 stories, we've had 12 episodes about Dark Gallifrey, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what Dark Gallifrey even is. And these stories are like zigzagging in terms of quality if you had them on a graph. The next installment of Dark Gallifrey comes out in April. We have no idea who it's going to revolve around. And overall, we've got 4 more trilogies left. So this could be like the anti-Star Trek movies approach. You know, it's the odd-numbered ones which are the best. You know, Morbius and Missy and whatever the untitled 5th one's gonna be. But folks, I want to know what you think of Dark Gallifrey Master! Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews. And folks, I'll see you all next time.